Welcome back to more FPL content. This will be the best goalkeepers for the upcoming season, and I'll be ranking the 20 best options at this moment in time in order, discussing some new transfers as well that have happened over the last couple of days, and also adding these options into the mix. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Our aim is to get this to 100 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals like 34,000 subscribers. Thank you for your support throughout Club World Cup Fantasy during the summer, and also for FPL and UCL Fantasy last season. If you want to see different types of videos covering summer signings, players to avoid, budget picks, and differentials, then let me know down in the comment section below, and let's continue the conversation across all my social media platforms on Discord, my X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and you can find me by typing FPL Dylan or Dylan RCM. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. The goalkeeper market is quite busy this summer, with several transfers happening, and Vice to Burnley is one of them. He comes in at 4.5 million and extremely low ownership at 0.2%, and he could replace Trafford, who is heavily linked with Manchester City, and I think Vice was fairly decent last season in the second league of the Bundesliga. He got 8 clean sheets, made 113 saves, but conceded 55 goals in the process, and he also saved 1 penalty, but he also had 10 penalties overall, so the save rate isn't too great in those situations, and also the level will be different compared to the Premier League. But it's that Game Week 2 fixture against Sunderland at home which is really appealing, but Vice might not even be a starter. If Trafford ends up staying at Burnley, then you can completely forget about this pick, and he's also 4.5 million. At the same price point, you can go for Verbruggen, Petrovic, and Kelleher, who will all be ranked much higher on this list. Next up, though, is going to be another newly promoted goalkeeper in Patterson, and you could definitely make a case for him being ranked even higher because Sunderland have the best fixtures of any of the newly promoted clubs, as covered in my key changes to FPL video. Now, Patterson has 0.7% ownership at the time of this recording, and he kept 14 clean sheets, which is very decent, with 92 saves as well, but he also conceded 42 goals in the Championship. That's significantly worse than Leeds United and Burnley, who boast better defences, or at least they did in the previous campaign. He also played 42 matches, so Patterson is nailed on, but you can also cover Sunderland defensively with 4 million options, so I think that reduces the appeal of Patterson significantly, but those opening fixtures are very appealing in my opinion, facing West Ham at home in Game Week 1 and then Burnley away in Game Week 2. The next goalkeeper on this list, though, is Perry, who just signed for Leeds United, and we expect him to be the number 1 goalkeeper over Meslier and Darlow, so that 4 million goalkeeper dream might be over already, and he was very solid for Lyon last season despite the French outfit struggles and all the commotion that's going around in that club. He kept 10 clean sheets, made 116 saves, and conceded 44 goals in Ligue 1, but the goals prevented figure is 6.05, and that is one of the best stats to indicate the strength of a goalkeeper and how crucial they are in helping the team get victories, keep clean sheets, and also prevent goals from being scored. It is Everton at home in Game Week 1, which is fairly appealing there for Leeds United, but it's followed up by Arsenal away, and of course that's going to be very tricky there for Leeds on paper, then Newcastle at home and Fulham away. So the opening start is a little bit mixed, but it does get better over time, and I do think Sunderland have significantly better fixtures in the opening portion of this season, but I would expect Leeds United to keep more clean sheets throughout the season. So Perry is one to look out for, and the same goes for Trafford if he goes to Man City. If that's the case, I would rank him much higher on this list, but if he stays at Burnley, he'd still be in and around this sort of position above the other newly promoted goalkeepers, and I think that is a fairly decent assessment of the Burnley shot stopper. He kept 29 clean sheets last season under Scott Parker with 88 saves and only 16 goals conceded, so a lot of 0-0s, 1-0s and 1-1s there for Burnley there, and he also saved 2 penalties out of 2, a 100% success rate, and the ownership is 3.6%, but it has reduced since the launch of FPL. It was around 4 to 5%, so I think the uncertainty about his future doesn't really help too much in the grand scheme of things. After Tottenham away in Game Week 1, provided that Trafford stays at Burnley, it is Sunderland at home, which I covered earlier with Vice, and he does come in at 5 million, which is quite steep if he does stay for a newly promoted club who are still expected to go back down to the Championship. But at Man City, if he were to go there and cement that number 1 spot, I think Trafford could be significantly better than Ederson and Ortega Moreno over the last couple of seasons in Fantasy Premier League. But let's now move away from these sorts of options, because Ederson, if he does stay at Man City, is still a solid choice, but I don't think he's the most appealing Man City asset in the slightest, to be honest. And what we have seen in the last 2 seasons is Ortega get the occasional start in this competition, but also in the Champions League when I cover UCL Fantasy. And Man City's opening fixtures are quite appealing, facing Wolves away, Tottenham at home, Brighton away, and Man United at home, at least in contrast to Liverpool, who have a tough opening start in the first 3 game weeks, and Arsenal, who have a very challenging set of 6 fixtures. But in terms of Man City, that rotation that can happen between the sticks is something that would put you off from the get-go. And 5.5 million is way too expensive, I think, for what Ederson offers in terms of save potential and clean sheets, and also the bonus points, even though he was actually better in some of these metrics in the previous campaign, because Man City faced more shots and also went down a level or 2 in the Premier League. So Ederson comes in at 17th in these rankings, and Areola is just narrowly ahead, facing Sunderland away in Game Week 1, and West Ham have good short-term fixtures. Even if you shift this to the medium term, it's still quite solid, and in the long term, I think the likes of Bowen, Wan-Bissaka, and even Areola could be decent choices for the Hammers, but the standout remains Jarrod Bowen, despite that reclassification to a forward, and I think Wan-Bissaka is the best way of covering that Hammers defence. But Areola kept 4 clean sheets last season in the Premier League with 82 saves, only 1 bonus point. That was a massive downgrade from what he did in the season before that, where he was getting a lot of bonus points and hauls on our benches when he came in at just 4 million. He displaced Fabianski as the number 1 goalkeeper for West Ham, but only 69 points in the previous campaign. That's why his ownership is quite low for a goalkeeper at 6.1%, and I do think there are better options at this price, maybe not so much below. I think with the 4 million bracket, there isn't really anyone. It's a bit of a graveyard at the moment, but at 4.5 million, there are certainly better options. Next up is Jose Sarr. I think he's also a little bit better than Areola, but not much separates them, and there's a lot of doubt about Wolves and other clubs like Brentford at this moment in time after selling key assets like Aït-Nouri and Matheus Cunha. So what's going to happen there with Vitor Pereira and Wolves this season? Let's wait and find out, but the opening start is quite mixed bag, facing Man City at home and Newcastle away in the opening 4. You do have Everton at home in Game Week 3, but I still think Wolves might struggle to keep a lot of clean sheets in this opening period, but they did have a few streaks last season where they kept a lot of clean sheets and looked very solid defensively under Vitor Pereira, and Jose Sarr had a very decent spell, quite underrated in that time frame. 71 saves, 7 clean sheets, and really low ownership at 2.6%, so he's certainly a differential, and 4 bonus points, which is 3 more than Areola, and he was very close to making it to 100 FPL points once again. But we're going to get to even better options now, and Vicario is one of them. If he came in at 4.5 million, I think he would have been ranked even higher in this list. I would expect Spurs to improve significantly under Thomas Frank in terms of their Premier League credentials and their consistency. So after Burnley at home in Game Week 1, it is Man City away, but they absolutely thrashed them last season at the Etihad with a 4-0 win. Then it's Bournemouth at home and West Ham away. But I think Spurs could keep 1 or 2 clean sheets in the opening 4 game weeks, and that could set the tone and the platform for Vicario to be one of the best goalkeepers in Fantasy Premier League. Only 4 clean sheets in the Premier League last season, which is quite poor, but he also got injured and Kinski replaced him. So there are a few kind of concerns or debates happening at the moment about Kinski fitting this sort of system under Thomas Frank, even more so than Vicario with the way he distributes the ball. So that's something to monitor throughout pre-season, but I would expect the Italian to start come Game Week 1. He made 68 saves, got 2 bonus points, and also got 66 points in FPL last season, which aren't particularly great. He definitely did much better in his debut campaign for Spurs, but I think Vicario will improve this season. The same goes for Nick Pope, who is always an injury doubt and concern, and if he were to miss out at any stage, you've got a 4 million goalkeeper in Martin Dubravka who is ready to step in, but Newcastle are always linked with a new goalkeeper, so I think Pope is always a little bit of a kind of difficult pick to go for, because it's hard to commit to such an injury-prone goalkeeper, and you've also got that sort of problem of Newcastle looking for an upgrade in this position, and their opening 2 fixtures are tough, facing Aston Villa away and Liverpool at home, but then it gets much better, facing Leeds away and Wolves at home. Pope kept 8 clean sheets last season in the Premier League alone, so all the stats you see on the left are pretty much Premier League or leagues only, and then if it says all competitions, then that is also self-explanatory. He got 2 bonus points and just about made it to the 100 club with 102 FPL points. His ownership is quite low at 3.9%, but I think with Newcastle, there are multiple ways of covering that defensive line. With Lewis Hall, who gets the assists, I think Dan Burn can be quite underrated with the defensive contribution points, which is all covered in my key changes to FPL video. There's Sven Botman if he can get into that starting 11, but I think it'll be Fabian Schär partnering Dan Burn in game week 1. At least that's how things look like at the moment. And then Livramento, who is one of the best upcoming defenders in world football, particularly in that position at right back. And I think Newcastle in general have so many great options in the midfield, and Alexander Isak up front, although he hasn't travelled with the squad to Asia, and that's something to definitely monitor over the coming days. Moving on to the next goalkeeper though, Verbruggen is only 4.5 million, and that's why he ranks higher than the likes of Nick Pope and a few of the other options I just discussed, like Edison, who may outscore Verbruggen if they start every single Premier League game, but in terms of value, they won't offer the same level as the Dutchman, who kept 7 clean sheets and made 91 saves in the Premier League with 6 bonus points. If Brighton can improve their defensive line and keep more clean sheets, and with the tweaks to the bonus point system, I think Verbruggen could easily get double digits in terms of bonus points, and that would make him even more appealing this season for Fantasy Premier League. I think the fixtures are quite mixed bag for Brighton, facing Fulham, Everton, Man City and Bournemouth, but I'm only talking about the first 4 game weeks, and fixture analysis can be found in my key changes to FPL video as well. Going on to the next option though, Leno is at 5 million this year, despite only getting 5 clean sheets for Fulham in the last season, with 1.6% ownership and 110 saves. He's another one that can get a lot of bonus points if Fulham were to keep more clean sheets in the upcoming season, with 115 FPL points to boot, but he can do more than that, as we've seen in the past with Arsenal and also with Fulham, where I think he has shown his best level in the Premier League. Facing Brighton away, Man United at home, Chelsea away and Leeds at home, I think that's fairly decent, but it could be slightly better. And with Fulham, I think they've maintained quite a stable starting 11, but there are still some question marks about that defensive line, and Robinson would still be the standout at the exact same price tag as Leno. He got 10 assists last season, and that means he can get more bonus points, and he had a great start to the previous campaign, but he did obviously fall by the wayside as Fulham kept fewer and fewer clean sheets as the season progressed. But I think Leno is still fairly decent, and the same applies to Onana, who will miss most of the pre-season, but the expectation is that it will be available for game week 1 against Arsenal. But Man United are looking for a new goalkeeper, and they are linked to several different options across Europe, and Bayern is ready to step in at 5 million. So let's keep an eye out for that situation. But if it looks like Bayern will start in game week 1, then I will be covering him and his stats, and we can compare that to Onana, who has 9 clean sheets, 90 saves, 8 bonus points and 120 FPL points. Despite the mistakes and also the controversy surrounding Onana, he can make some brilliant saves on his day, and in FPL terms, he's quite underrated actually. So if he was in a good defence, I think he would keep a lot of clean sheets, and that would mean more bonus points and more FPL points overall. And the saves volume is always quite good for Man United because they just concede too many chances, especially big opportunities. And with the tweaks to the bonus point system, I think Andre Onana could be one of the best goalkeepers in FPL, but it all depends on if he stays as the number 1 goalkeeper for Man United. And the only good fixture over the first 6 game weeks is Burnley at home in game week 3, where you would expect United to keep a clean sheet, but who knows given their level these days. They have made some very good signings over the summer like Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo, but I still think that defensive line is quite weak and they need to bolster that position, and they also need that striker to go to the next level and challenge for those European spots. But I think in their defensive line, Onana might still be the best way to cover the Red Devils defensively, but you may have a different opinion about that. And in terms of the worst fixtures, I think Arsenal and Man United would be bottom over the first 6 game weeks. Now going on to Emi Martinez, he is linked with Man United, and Aston Villa have signed a new goalkeeper in Bizot, and he could come in at 4.5 million and take Martinez's spot. And he's also suspended for game week 1 anyway against Newcastle at home, so let's bear that in mind. And he would be an option from game week 2 onwards should he stay in the Premier League. He is linked with a lot of different clubs at the moment. He kept 8 clean sheets for the Villains last season with 100 saves, 6 bonus points and 111 FPL points overall. Now that is definitely quite weak compared to how he did in his first Aston Villa season, where he broke the all-time record, I believe, for points in FPL for a goalkeeper, at least at that price tag they came in at, and he was very solid at 4.5 million. Now, he is quite consistent now with that 5 million price tag. I just don't think he is the most appealing option, but if he goes to Man United and becomes the number one there from Game Week 2 onwards, I think Emi Martinez could enter that sort of top 5 or top 6 bracket in FPL terms, and even at Aston Villa, he could be quite competitive with most goalkeeper options in the game. But let's see where he ends up going. Does he stay at Aston Villa? Of course, Unai Emery was quite bullish, saying that he is going to stay, but then you look at Emi Martinez's reaction after the final home game against Tottenham Hotspur back in Game Week 37, and it looked like he was on the verge of leaving, but nothing has been confirmed yet, and he has been linked with a lot of different clubs over the last couple of years. Next up, though, is Alisson Becker, who is quite injury prone, and at 5.5 million, I think there are better ways of covering that Liverpool defence with Frimpong, who has the attacking potential. The same goes for Milos Kerkez, and Virgil van Dijk could also offer goals, but you also got the defensive contribution points, which I think could be very crucial in establishing him as the best defender in FPL. And there will be a best defenders video coming out very soon where I talk about the sort of rankings and comparing him to the Arsenal options who would probably rival him for that number one spot. But with Alisson Becker, 10 clean sheets, 78 saves, 9 bonus points, and 112 FPL points overall. So if you kind of compare his points per game to Pickford and Raya and Sells, it'll be quite high and very competitive, but he does miss a lot of games, and Keller came in and did a solid job as his replacement. But of course, Alisson is on another level, and Liverpool will want him fit for the entirety of this season, but they have signed a very decent goalkeeper as the backup. If you did watch the Euros, which I covered of last summer, then we all know the Georgian goalkeeper who comes in, and he will be very solid and competitive in those cup games. And whenever Alisson is injured or misses out, he will do a good job when needed in the Premier League too. But Burnley away in Game Week 4 is by far the best game that Liverpool have to offer. Bournemouth at home could be quite decent as well, and I think Liverpool can keep a clean sheet there. But Newcastle away and Arsenal at home are extremely tough on paper. Let's see how Alisson and Liverpool get on in those games. But Dean Henderson also comes in at 5 million, just like the likes of Emi Martinez, Vicario, and Onana, and his ownership is 3.2%, but he was one of the standout goalkeepers last season at 4.5 million, and he kept 11 clean sheets, made 104 saves, and also got 8 bonus points to deliver 133 overall. But Crystal Palace over the first 3 game weeks are probably an avoid in that defensive line, but then it's Sunderland at home in Game Week 4, and things get much better from that point onwards, and maybe fixtures like Nottingham Forest this season are much easier than they were in the previous campaign when they finished in those European spots. But Dean Henderson will be less appealing now because Crystal Palace also have to deal with that sort of balance of the Conference League or maybe Europa League if they can win their appeal alongside the Premier League. And you've also got the signing of Walter Benitez from PSV Eindhoven. He's a solid goalkeeper and he could challenge Dean Henderson as the number one, but we all expect the Englishman to retain that number one spot after helping Crystal Palace win the FA Cup. But I'm interested to see your thoughts. Do you think Dean Henderson should come in at higher than 7th, or do you think that's a fair ranking for him in terms of the best goalkeepers in Fantasy Premier League? Next up, though, is one of the standout 4.5 million goalkeepers in Kelleher, who is extremely template right now with 31.5% ownership, making him the most popular goalkeeper in the game. He only kept 4 clean sheets last season because he only played a handful of games for Liverpool, making 27 saves. He also got a penalty save under his belt, and he did this in the Champions League 2, where he denied Kylian Mbappe in a 2-0 win for Liverpool over Real Madrid with 45 FPL points. And I think that price tag is extremely healthy, and he's got sustainable long-term fixtures for Brentford. But the big concern is how will the Bees get on this season with the departure of Christian Norgard, Thomas Frank, their manager, Brian Mbeumo, and the list could keep going on and on with Visser heavily linked with Newcastle too. But I think Kelleher and also Collins in that defensive line could still get 100 plus FPL points quite comfortably, and I think he'll make a lot of saves. I talked about Flecken's stats last season, which can be used as a barometer for Kelleher's potential FPL success, and he was one of the best goalkeepers last season. Only Raya, Sells and Pickford outscored him in FPL last season, so I think Kelleher could be in the top 4 to 5 higher scoring goalkeepers this time round, even though Brentford might not keep that many clean sheets in the process. But going into the top 5 now, I have put Petrovic just above him, and the only bad thing here is facing Liverpool away in game week 1. So if you are looking to bench boost, that could definitely put you off and you'd rather go elsewhere. But I think Petrovic can make multiple saves, and he could have the odd game against a big club where you expect him to get battered or concede a lot of goals, but he could get a clean sheet, multiple saves, and a massive return in the process. And for Chelsea, towards the end of the 2023-24 season, he was doing extremely well under Pochettino, but I don't think he had Maresca's favour from the beginning. He was also in the kind of Robert Sanchez camp, so Petrovic did have to make way, and Chelsea have like 7 to 8 goalkeepers. They're selling a few and loaning some out, and they still have so many under their belt. But Petrovic might be the best of them all, in my opinion, and his ownership is 5.6%. He kept 5 clean sheets in the Premier League last time out, with 75 saves, 5 bonus points, and 71 points overall. And the opening fixtures beyond Liverpool are quite decent for Bournemouth, so it might be worth doubling up with Semenyo or Kluivert in the midfield, Ivanosen up front, and you've also got Petrovic in that defensive line. But also keep an eye out for Troffert, the new signing who is replacing Milos Kerkez at left back. He only costs 4.5 million as well, so I think it's quite close between him and Petrovic in determining the best way to cover Bournemouth defensively, but I would lean towards Petrovic at this moment in time, and I think he'll be very underrated in FPL this season. But Robert Sanchez is in 4th. I think Petrovic is a better goalkeeper overall, but in FPL terms, you've got Sanchez coming in at 5 million for Chelsea, who had a great summer tournament, of course, in the Club World Cup, and they won the Conference League as well, so they're building some confidence, winning trophies, and Robert Sanchez could start 35 plus Premier League games and get a few clean sheets in the process. He kept 10 last season when Chelsea was still fairly inconsistent, and I think they'll go up to another level and potentially challenge the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester City with 95 saves and 11 bonus points, which is quite underrated. He might make a lot of mistakes, a bit like Andre Onana, and they aren't great goalkeepers overall, but they do have their moments, and in terms of the bonus point system and FPL, they still can get those crucial points necessary to make them viable FPL assets, and that's why he kept 126 FPL points, or he accumulated that anyway, in the previous campaign. West Ham away in Game Week 2 is the best fixture according to the fixture difficulty rating. The rest are fairly decent, and Chelsea are ranked amongst the top in terms of the first 6 game weeks of the season, which is all covered in my preliminary draft podcast and also the key changes to FPL video. But would you have Robert Sanchez ranked higher, or do you think 4th is a fair assessment? Because in 3rd, I've gone for Matt Sells, who got 150 FPL points last season, and Nottingham Forest's fixtures are still quite solid in the long term. They face Brentford at home to kick things off, then it's Crystal Palace away and West Ham at home. Arsenal away does take away a bit of the shine, but Forest can still unsettle them as they did in their goalless draw at the City ground very recently, and 17.6% ownership reflects the faith that FPL managers have in these Nottingham Forest defensive assets and Matt Sells in goal. With 13 clean sheets, he shared the Golden Glove with David Raya, which I highlighted at the beginning of this video with that opening graphic. 120 saves, 11 bonus points, all of that looks extremely solid, and the underlying numbers were also very strong. But I think Nottingham Forest will drop this season with their kind of balance between the Conference League and the Premier League, and also some key assets leaving, particularly in the midfield and winger positions. Anthony Elanga to Newcastle United, and let's see what happens with Morgan Gibbs-White, who was close to agreeing a move with Tottenham Hotspur, and if that ends up going through, that would be another massive loss, particularly for Chris Wood, who thrives off that creativity, and Forest might actually rely more on the defensive line than they did last season, which was already enough, and that was the kind of foundation and strengths and what they needed to get to that really solid start and establish themselves as one of the best Premier League clubs. I think they will have that bit of a drop-off, but still be quite competitive in most of these matches, and Matt Sells is 3rd for that particular reason. But in 2nd, I'm going for David Raya at 5.5 million. He is the joint most expensive goalkeeper in the game with Ederson, Alisson and Jordan Pickford. With 18.1% ownership, he kept 13 clean sheets, made 86 saves, which was like double what he did in the campaign before that, where he started his Arsenal career, with 10 bonus points and 142 FPL points overall. But I think one of the main reasons why Raya is 2nd is because Arsenal have such a difficult opening part of the season, and despite Leeds at home looking really appealing, I still think they could concede in that game and ultimately I think there's one goalkeeper who's been so consistent over the years who can guarantee you almost 140 FPL points or more in every single campaign, and that's going to be none other than Jordan Pickford, who I believe was ranked number 1 in the last season when I did this sort of thing, the best goalkeepers for FPL. He was also ranked number 1, and he was the highest scoring FPL goalkeeper once again with 158 points. And the main reason why is the bonus points. He gets 15, and he kind of guarantees you double digits in this metric, and that means his ceiling is really high when Everton keep a clean sheet. He made 122 saves and also kept 12 clean sheets, only one fewer than Nottingham Forest and Arsenal, with their respective goalkeepers that were just covered. And Everton have decent fixtures, with Leeds away and Wolves away particularly standing out. And his ownership has decreased over the last couple of days to 15.2%. And if he was 5 million, I think he'd be in most of our teams with 30 to 40% ownership. So it's probably a good thing he comes in at 5.5 million. But the key question now is, do you go for Jordan Pickford with the saves potential? He can also make penalty saves, get a lot of bonus points. Or do you cover Everton defensively with Tarkowski or Branthwaite, who can get so many defensive contributions? And then you've got Mikalenko thrown into the mix, who only costs 5 million. He might not offer the same level of consistency of double-digit hauls, but he does offer the value over Pickford, Branthwaite and Tarkowski. After ranking the best goalkeepers in Fantasy Premier League for the 2025-26 season, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you agree with the classifications, or would you change anything? And do you want to see this for defenders, midfielders and forwards, not to mention differentials, budget picks, promoted clubs and summer signings? I did very similar things for Euro Fantasy last season and also for FPL in the previous campaign. So if you want to see that sort of thing return to the channel, then just let me know, and let's continue the conversation for this game and UCL Fantasy very soon. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content, whether it's for FPL or UCL Fantasy. Follow me on X, Instagram and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you very soon for even more drafts and different types of content throughout pre-season, and keep your eyes peeled for the Game Week 1 deadline stream in a couple of weeks' time.